What's Happening, 1976 cast, reveals what most fans never figured out. One legendary show, and behind the laughter, a creator who ended up in a homeless shelter, a mother who lost both her legs and an arm to illness, and the funniest one of all, who blew $1 million and tried to end his own life. What's Happening gave America its very first black teen sitcom and made the whole country laugh for 3 seasons. But almost none of the people who built it made it out unscathed. Behind every catchphrase was a lawsuit, a tragedy, or a secret the cameras never caught. Stay to the very end, because the final story might be the most heartbreaking of all. And subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, where the truth lives behind the smile. Norman Lear. If you gathered around a television set anywhere in America during the 1970s, then this man helped decide what your household laughed at, wrestled with, and carried in its heart long after the screen went dark. Norman Milton Lear was born on July 27, 1922, in New Haven, Connecticut, and he lived an astonishing 101 years before passing away on December 5, 2023. Yet before any of the sitcoms, there was a war. Lear flew 52 combat missions as a radio operator and gunner aboard B-17 bombers over Europe during World War II, earning the Air Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters. The man who would later bring bigotry, poverty, and injustice into America's living rooms had first witnessed humanity's cruelty from 30,000 feet in the sky. His revolution began in 1971 with All in the Family, and from there followed a run few producers in any era could rival. Sanford and Son, Maude, Good Times, The Jeffersons, and One Day at a Time. These were never merely popular programs. They were quiet acts of daring. The first time American comedy spoke honestly about the subjects families were too frightened to raise at the supper table. He gathered 5 Emmy Awards, 2 Peabodys, the National Medal of Arts, and the Kennedy Center Honors. And in 1980, he founded the advocacy group, People for the American Way. And yet his link to What's Happening carried a shadow he never fully escaped. The writer Eric Monti accused Lear of building some of those cherished hits upon his uncredited ideas, a dispute that became one of the most bruising intellectual property fights in the history of black television. What audiences at home never grasped was that the warmth radiating from those beloved shows sat atop a bitter, unresolved question of authorship, of who had truly dreamed them into being. For all his honors, and there were many, that particular question is one Lear's towering legacy left hanging in the air, unanswered to the end. Flip Wilson. Here is a truth almost no one ties to What's Happening. One of its funniest stars owed the very existence of her career to this generous man. Flip Wilson entered the world as Claro Wilson Jr. on December 8, 1933, in Jersey City, the 10th of 18 children born into brutal poverty. His mother left when he was 7. His father, unable to feed so many mouths, scattered most of the children into foster homes. Young Claro was sent to reform school, from which he broke free 8 separate times. At 16, he lied about his age to enlist in the Air Force, and there, spinning tall, tumbling tales for his fellow servicemen, he earned the nickname Flip. A career had been forged, quite literally, out of the will to survive. After his discharge in 1954, he worked as a bellhop at the Manor Plaza Hotel in San Francisco, performing between acts to make ends meet, then spent years grinding through the Chitlin circuit. His break came in 1965, when the great Red Fox, asked on The Tonight Show to name America's funniest comedian, replied instantly, Flip Wilson. From 1970 to 1974, he hosted The Flip Wilson Show on NBC, becoming the first black entertainer ever to headline a hit weekly variety series, unforgettable for characters like the sassy Geraldine and the catchphrase, "The devil made me do it." At its peak, the program ranked 2nd in the entire nation, and Time crowned him television's first black superstar on its January 1972 cover. He won 2 Emmys, a Golden Globe, and a Grammy for his album, The Devil Made Me Buy This Dress. And his tie to our story is intimate. A simple cassette of Shirley Hemphill's comedy, mailed to him by a stranger, moved him enough to invite her to his set and set her on the road to What's Happening. He died on November 25, 1998, at 64, of liver cancer, having stepped back from the stage years earlier to raise his children himself after winning custody in 1979. Eric Monte. Now let us speak, at last, the name most people have never heard, because that invisibility is the very core of the heartbreak. Eric Monte, born Kenneth Williams on December 25, 1943, and raised in the Cabrini Green housing projects of Chicago, is the writer who genuinely created What's Happening. Strip him away, and there is no Raj, no rerun, no Dwayne, no show whatsoever. As a teenager in those projects, he had first chased music, forming a doo-wop group called the Blackstones, before discovering that his real gift was storytelling. He went on to write the beloved 1975 film Cooley High, produced for under $1 million and earning roughly $13 million, the very picture that gave rise to the series. He co-created Good Times with the actor Mike Evans and contributed to The Jeffersons, helping shape some of the most significant black television of the whole decade. And still, his name was steadily buried. In 1977, he filed suit accusing CBS, Norman Lear, Bud Yorkin, and others of using his creative work without proper credit. It closed in a settlement he found deeply unsatisfying. By his own telling, about $1 million, along with a slim share of the residuals from Good Times. Far worse, he said. The industry quietly shut its doors, and the assignments simply stopped coming. In the years after, only a stray episode or two of other shows carried his name. By 2006, one of the most accomplished black television writers of the 1970s was living in a Salvation Army homeless shelter in Bell, California. But here is what few people know, and what deserves to be stated without hedging. Eric Monte is alive today, in his early 80s. After suffering a series of strokes, he now resides in an assisted living facility, cared for in part through a fundraising effort launched by his own fans. He handed this nation some of the most joyful laughter it has ever known, and the nation came within a breath of letting him slip away unthanked. Ernest Thomas. The young man who became Roger Raj Thomas stands today as the composed survivor of a cast that was very nearly swept away in full. Ernest Lee Thomas was born on March 26, 1950, in Gary, Indiana. And here is a fact that catches many off guard. Before television ever discovered him, he was refining his craft on the Broadway stage, appearing in Love for Love in 1974, productions that also featured a then-unknown Glenn Close. That theatrical grounding gave him an edge. He walked into an audition against roughly 200 rival actors and emerged with the lead, appearing in all 65 original episodes as the series made history, becoming the first black teen sitcom to break into the Nielsen Top 30 in its very first season. But here is what most viewers never realized. That same year, Ernest was one of the final two men considered for Kunta Kinte in Roots. The part went to LeVar Burton, yet Ernest still appeared in the landmark miniseries, 2 chapters of television history, in a single year, both almost his. Away from the cameras, he has spoken candidly about living with amblyopia, or lazy eye, a condition that never once loosened his concentration. He has also revealed a romance in the 1970s with a young drama student named Kim Cattrall, long before the world would come to know her name. He returned to reprise Raj in the syndicated sequel What's Happening Now, from 1985 to 1988, and kept working with quiet consistency for decades afterward. A supporting turn in Spike Lee's Malcolm X in 1992, the cherished recurring funeral director Mr. Omar on Everybody Hates Chris, and even a radio DJ role in a Rob Zombie horror film in 2012. Today, at 76, Ernest Thomas is the last surviving male lead of the original cast, a steady presence in an industry that, as you are about to witness again and again, claimed far too many of those who stood beside him. Mabel King. To a whole generation of viewers, she was, quite simply, Mama, the warm and immovable center of the Thomas household. But the truth of Mabel King's life is a story of towering principle and almost unspeakable suffering. Mabel Elizabeth King was born on Christmas Day, December 25, 1932, in Charleston, South Carolina. And long before any television role, she had made her name on the stage, and even as a nightclub singer, most famously originating the Wicked Witch Eveline in the original Broadway production of The Wiz, a performance so thunderous it defined her early career, and one she carried over into the 1978 film version, alongside Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. On What's Happening, she anchored the entire show as a divorced working mother, raising 2 children in Watts with strength, tenderness, and humor, and audiences embraced her without reservation. But behind the scenes, she was waging a battle the producers refused to honor. Mabel believed the program should depict a whole black family, and she asked, pointedly, that her character's former husband return so the Thomas household could be shown with 2 married parents. When her vision was waved aside, she made a decision rooted entirely in conviction. After the second season, in 1978, she left the show for good, not over salary, but over the dignity of how her people were portrayed. What followed was a devastating unraveling of her health. Diabetes claimed her body piece by piece, a toe amputated in 1986, a stroke that ended her career in 1990, her left leg in 1991, her right in 1994, and eventually one of her arms. In 1996, she lost her son, a sorrow heaped upon an already crushing burden. Mabel King passed away on November 9, 1999, at 66, fewer than 30 days before her castmate, Shirley Hemphill. The show lost its heart twice in a single month. Her legacy survives not only in reruns, but in the quiet valor of a woman who chose her principles over her paycheck at the very summit of her fame. Fred Berry. He handed the world a red beret, a set of suspenders, and a joyful cry of "Hey, hey, hey," that became the very soundtrack of an era. And seldom has any performer been so utterly, so permanently, welded to a single character. Fred Berry was rerun. Born Fred Allen Berry on March 19, 1951, in St. Louis, Missouri, he grew up in the inner-city projects with little more than rhythm and hunger, and he was already a performer before television, a founding member of the trailblazing Los Angeles street dance troupe The Lockers, who electrified early episodes of Saturday Night Live and Soul Train. His signature slow-motion move could stop a crowd cold. When he auditioned, the character of Rerun had been written as a skinny white kid. Berry simply looked the producers in the eye, grinned, and declared, "I am a white skinny guy." They laughed and rebuilt the role entirely around him. He grew so fused with the part that he legally changed his own middle name to Rerun. But fame outran wisdom badly. In a searing 1996 interview with People magazine, Berry confessed to burning through $1 million in roughly 3 years, on drugs, real estate, an airplane, and horses, and even claimed drug dealers had operated openly on the studio lot in the 1970s. During his lowest years, he admitted, he attempted to take his own life, and yet his story bent, at last, toward redemption. After completing treatment for substance abuse, he became an ordained Baptist minister at Little Shiloh Primitive Baptist Church in Madison, Alabama, transforming his pain into purpose by speaking at schools and churches. And before the end, he even apologized to his former castmates for years of difficult behavior. Fred Berry died on October 21, 2003, at just 52, while recovering from a stroke, having shed 100 pounds after a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. At his funeral, Ernest Thomas offered 5 gentle, forgiving words. There's a thing called forgiveness. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Here is a what-if, so enormous it could have rearranged the history of television. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs was born on September 4, 1953, in New York City, the 5th of 9 children, and he trained rigorously in the theater, with the Negro Ensemble Company and the Al Fan Theatrical Ensemble, before his career detonated in 2 directions at precisely the same moment. In 1975, he starred in Cooley High, the seminal Eric Monty film that would go on to inspire What's Happening itself, playing the doomed young basketball star Cochise, a role whose tragic ending still moves audiences half a century later. That very same year, he claimed the part of Freddie "Boom Boom" Washington on ABC's Welcome Back, Kotter, opposite a young John Travolta, a hit that ran from 1975 to 1979 and lifted him to genuine stardom. And here is the casting secret so few fans ever learned. According to accounts from the production, the lead role of Roger Raj Thomas, the part that would make Ernest Thomas a household name, was first being weighed for Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Had that lone decision tipped the other way, he might have anchored two adored shows at once, an almost impossible double. Instead, the two aired side by side, each stamping the decade from a different network. His range stayed strikingly broad across the years. He appeared in Roots in 1977, in The Jacksons, An American Dream in 1992, in the television series Alien Nation, and decades later in a Rob Zombie horror picture, a genre-crossing appetite that kept him employed across 4 full decades, and he pursued music alongside acting as well. Now 72 years old, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs remains active in the industry, a working performer whose durable career has outlived the very era that first made him famous. His is a story of craft outlasting celebrity, and of a man who understood that endurance in Hollywood demands far more than a single unforgettable role. Shirley Hemphill. She fired off some of the sharpest, funniest lines on all of 1970s television as Shirley the waitress, and the tale of how she reached that stage is one of the great long-shot journeys in the history of comedy. Shirley Ann Hemphill was born on July 1, 1947, in Asheville, North Carolina. Sharp, loud, and fearlessly funny from her earliest days. She followed no conventional road into show business. She recorded her own stand-up onto a cassette tape and mailed it straight to Flip Wilson, one of the biggest names in American comedy at the time. Wilson was so struck by it that he personally invited her to his set, and that single visit rerouted the entire course of her life. She quit her factory job, moved to Los Angeles, and worked the Comedy Store by night while waiting tables by day. The hustle was real, and the talent undeniable. When the legendary Norman Lear later offered her a spin-off series of her own after noticing her on Good Times, she turned it down, choosing instead to audition for What's Happening, and winning the role of the no-nonsense waitress at Rob's Place. After the show's cancellation in 1979, she pivoted at once. She auditioned for Archie Bunker's Place, but lost the role to Ann Marrera, and the very next day was handed her own sitcom, One in a Million, in which she played a taxi driver who inherits a fortune, though it lasted only 13 episodes. Setback absorbed, she returned to stand-up, touring nightclubs and appearing on The Tonight Show, then reprised Shirley in the 1985 sequel, now the restaurant's co-owner. But her ending was as quiet as her comedy had been loud. On December 10, 1999, just a year after a cast reunion on The Jenny Jones Show, she was found in her West Covina home by her gardener, who spotted her through a window. She was only 52, and the cause was kidney failure, gone far too softly for a woman who had been so vivid, so vital, and so genuinely funny. Haywood Nelson Jr. Of the original 3 young men, he was the youngest, and, as time would reveal, perhaps the most quietly remarkable of them all. Haywood Knowles Nelson Jr. was born on March 25, 1960, in New York City, and by the time he won the role of the soft-spoken, gentle Dwayne at just 16, he had already completed a 2-year Broadway run in the play Thieves, and guest starred on both Sanford and Son and its spin-off Grady at the age of 14. For a teenager, that was an extraordinary resume, and Dwayne's understated calm balanced flawlessly against Rerun's explosive energy and Raj's earnest striving. He became one of the first black teen idols in American television history, a genuine cultural landmark that too often goes unspoken, with his poster pinned to bedroom walls all across the country. But here is what virtually no one saw coming. Even at the crest of that fame, Haywood was quietly studying architectural design and electronics engineering, his mind already reaching well past the spotlight. When the cast reunited for the 1985 sequel, he not only played Dwayne again, but also served as the show's technical director, an early and telling sign of where his true passion lay. In the decades since, he has moved steadily behind the camera, first as a camera assistant, then into screenwriting and international film distribution, and today he works as a lighting technician and stagehand on major productions, including late-night television programs. He is also a founding partner in 2 companies, one devoted to television development and another to mobile gaming. His personal life has been full and eventful. 4 marriages across the years and 3 children. Now 66 years old, Haywood Nelson is one of only 2 surviving original cast members, standing alongside Ernest Thomas, living proof that, more often than we admit, the quietest person in the room is the one still on his feet, long after the noise and the applause have faded into silence. Danielle Spencer. And so we arrive, at last, at the little sister whose real life held more courage than any line the writers ever put in her mouth. Danielle Louise Spencer was born on June 24, 1965, in Trenton, New Jersey, and raised in the Bronx. She began acting at the age of 7, and by 11 she had become Dee Thomas, whose tart catchphrase, "Ooh, I'm gonna tell Mama," grew into one of the most quoted lines in all of 1970s television. But beneath that bright comic confidence, a tragedy was already taking shape. On September 6, 1977, during production of the 2nd season, Danielle and her stepfather, Tim Pelt, were caught in a catastrophic car accident. Pelt died shielding her with his own body. Danielle spent 3 weeks in a coma and 6 months in physical therapy, and she retained no memory of the crash itself. The show paused taping for an entire month so she could heal. Then she made a choice that astonished nearly everyone. After the series ended, she stepped away from Hollywood to become a veterinarian, a path her late stepfather had lovingly encouraged, which made it a heartfelt tribute to the man who died protecting her. She earned her doctorate and practiced for more than 25 years, and even returned briefly to the screen in 1997 to play, fittingly, a veterinarian in the film As Good as It Gets. But her body never fully recovered from that night. In 2004, spinal stenosis traced directly to the accident required surgery that left her partially paralyzed for 8 months, and she credited the rehabilitation team of Christopher Reeve with helping her walk again. In 2014, came a diagnosis of breast cancer. Through all of it, she wrote a memoir, Through the Fire, and never surrendered her spirit. Danielle Spencer passed away on August 11, 2025, at the age of 60, after a long and courageous battle with cancer, surrounded by her mother and her brother, the jazz musician Jeremy Pelt, a warrior, right to the very end. So here's the question worth sitting with. Was What's Happening a triumph or a quiet tragedy? A show that still makes people smile nearly 50 years later, built by a cast and a creator who were, so often, never fairly rewarded for it. One writer nearly vanished into a homeless shelter. One mother lost everything to illness after walking away on principle. One star found his faith only after hitting the very bottom. And yet the laughter still endures. Does a legacy truly count if the people who built it were left behind? Was Hollywood's treatment of them simply the product of its time, or something more deliberate? Drop your answer below, and subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories.